Hi Bhavna, and thank you for taking out this time. This is the Learning in Action series by People Matters and upGrad Enterprise, and we'd love to get some of your views for our learning leaders so that they can actually learn something, from your experience. So let's get started. And Bhavna, one of the things that has come out from the event is really about technologies like AI becoming very, very mainstream, right? And as an HR leader, how do you think about that? And how is that related to people actually learning AI today?
Yeah, well, pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me. I have to begin by saying that technology is constantly growing. AI has become more prominent after Gen AI, ChatGPT. Those conversations have sort of gained preeminence. But AI has been around for a really long time, since the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So when it comes to technology, I believe the type of technology will continue to change. There'll be certain things which will be flavor of the year, flavor of the quarter, flavor of 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I think what is more important than the specifics of technology are 2 or 3 key ingredients, which is how do we promote learning agility on a continuous basis. Now this is around technology, it's around process, it's around new ways of working, it's around having a multidisciplinary approach to thinking about opportunities and issues and how we solve for them. So learning agility being one. I think the second one is how do we promote active experimentation, right? Now this is very important, because what happens is that on the one hand, if you talk about being a learning organization, but on the other hand, if you don't give people the creative license to explore, to fail,
Right.
To try things out, then they won't be able to, or that comfort in trying things out will not be there. So how do you create that kind of an ecosystem? And I think the third piece is different people learn differently. Different people learn at different paces, right? So instead of trying to drive one program, one roadmap, one journey, can we think about the ingredients being out there in the ecosystem and people responding to and pulling from the ecosystem based on their preferences, their needs, what works for them? So just a few thoughts.
So very interestingly, you mentioned about, and I'll double click on the last point, right, which is about personalization and also peer learning, right? Mm-hmm. How are you at S&P sort of thinking about that? Because today you've got a very diverse set of employees across the globe. How are you able to solve that? Because this seems to be a challenge for a lot of learning leaders today.
Yeah. What I love about my organization is the fact that we believe that we live in an era of not paths but lattices. Now, the second you pivot your perspective from a path to a lattice, you realize that it's not about providing one structured way. It's about, like I mentioned earlier, providing the tools, the ingredients, and letting people sort of figure it out their way. How we've done that is that we have multiple components to our learning ecosystem. Let me talk to you about some of those components. One, we're one of a handful of organizations in the world that has an in-house standing career coaching team. And that career coaching is not just available to top of the pyramid or middle of the pyramid or specific layers. It's available to every single colleague across the 35,000 odd that we have in S&P Global,
wow,
across all regions, across all levels. It is confidential. And those are career coaches who are internationally trained and recognized as career coaches. So we haven't, compromised on quality. We haven't compromised on access. That's one. Second, we've got an open learning ecosystem, which means that we've got programs. We've done some very interesting tie-ups with organizations like Big Think Plus, where video-based learning content is available. We've got academies, like for instance, we've got a Essential Tech Academy, a AI Tech Academy, etc. that are there. So people have all kinds of learning content available to digest at their pace at that time. That works for them, right? We also have a lot of certifications available as part of our overall EDGE learning ecosystem. And the final piece that I want to talk about is S&P Global is one of those very unique organizations that, in spite of providing all of these opportunities, also has an individual education allowance for every single employee across the world. So if you and your people leader, we don't call them managers, we call them people leaders. If you and your people leader believe that there is a program that will enable your growth, enable business impact, and it's not available internally, no problem. Please leverage your education allowance, go external. It's a reasonably simple process to get that approved, and you can go upskill yourself. And the combination of tie-ups, with setups like Emeritus, where people have access to best-in-class programs around the world, means that whether coaching, whether videos, whether learning content, whether case studies, whether discussions with peers, it is truly an ecosystem that enables our people to learn.
No, that's amazing, and I think you've sort of covered the entire gamut, I would say, right? And I think it's an ecosystem that's well thought of. As an employee, and if I had to be given that ecosystem today, a lot of times I don't know what I should be learning to become ready for the future. How are you helping employees think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question, because no one knows what you require to be ready for the future. The future is unfolding so beautifully that sometimes it feels like, is it going to be Matrix-like? Sometimes you feel that, okay, maybe even that's, that's limited as compared to the possibilities out there. So the way we do that is by creating conversations of all shades. We have conversations around technology, we have conversations around geopolitics, we have conversations around belonging, inclusion, we have conversations around behavior and skills. And not only within S&P Global, because we've got a lot of expertise in-house, right? Whether it is country risk analysis, whether it is commodities, whether it is markets and how the capital markets operate, whether it is ratings, whether it's indices. So there's a lot of sheer thought capital that exists within the organization, which is freely available to everybody. But there are a lot of experts that we're constantly pulling into the organization, and we have open learning sessions, again, for all 35,000, anybody who wants to attend those, right? So in the past, we've had experts like Hubert Joly come and speak to our people, right, to share a perspective. And this is not just academic, and that's the difference. It's not just having a theoretical point of view, it's about knowledge in action. It's about impact in action. And therefore, if you really think about it, what does it take to make a winning dish? Right? A lot of chefs will tell you that when they are in their innovation kitchen, there are a bunch of ingredients that they may want to play around with, but even they don't know how, what techniques, what outcome, etc. That's what the future is. We've got a bunch of ingredients around us. We know what we want to try to do, and then it's about active experimentation. And I think creating that safe space, creating both psychological safety and learning appetite in people, helps you maybe come up with an innovative dish one day after another.
That's a great analogy for learning leaders to think about what happens in a kitchen. But looking at the past year, what do you think has been the top learning challenge for you that you've tried to solve at S&P?
Yeah, I do believe that learning is a never-ending journey, but I believe that one of our more than challenge, I'll say one of our focus areas has definitely been people leader capabilities, right? Because at the end of the day, we call our managers people leaders because we believe that the role is not to manage performance, it's a lot more, right? It is truly to create that end-to-end people experience, and we pride ourselves on being a people-first company. So how do you, when you think of a spectrum, people leadership will mean that you have people who are first-time people leaders, you have people who've done some amount of people leadership but are still wet behind the ears, you have people who've done people leadership but whose skills are not necessarily very effective, and then you have role model people leaders, right? Now in this entire spectrum, how do you constantly look at fundamental skills, foundational skills, but then also evolution?
Right.
And in today's day and age, I think within this larger people leadership gamut, how do you help people leaders manage change, is perhaps one of our biggest focus areas, right? Because when it comes to change, that's when you get trusted, where you get tested on trust, on belonging, on productivity, on impact, on customer centricity. Because at the end of the day, we exist to create impact for our customers and to power global markets. And we can't exist for our customers and power global markets if our people don't feel empowered. And therefore, the people leaders play the most pivotal role, and that is one big area of focus for us.
And would you think that that's an ever evolving need for you as you grow, or do you think you're somewhere close to solving that?
I don't think any company in the world will ever say that they are close to solving their people leader development opportunity, right? Because remember, it's a never ending factory. Right? You always have new people leaders getting promoted into roles. You always have new types of challenges coming about, right? And therefore, it's one of those things which is, it's a virtuous cycle, right? It's like,
absolutely,
it continues, it continues, it continues. But what I will say is that I think we are at that stage where we feel good about the kind of frameworks, the kind of enablement we are doing by keeping it real. We've got playbooks out there, we've got training programs out there, we've got panel discussions that we are doing. You know, the whole piece of leaders standing up and saying, I'm a people leader, but guess what? These have been 3 of my biggest failures and this is what I learned from it. That authentic dialogue, when that starts happening, you know that, okay, you're at a slightly more evolved curve on this journey.
Oh yes, absolutely. I cannot agree more. Maybe last question, and your piece of advice to learning leaders who are looking at this video. If today they had to focus on something, what do you think that should be through your experience?
So one, I would encourage every learning leader to go do a business role. Because if you think learning frameworks are what will tell you the impact of learning in an organization, we're sadly mistaken. Right? Go do a real business role, go partner with the business, go understand how does your company make money? How does your company lose money? Where are your pain points? What are your customers saying about things, right? Every learning leader is a business leader, because your job is to enable business outcomes, business excellence, business impact.
Absolutely.
Right? And therefore, I would challenge you that go out there and know the business of your business like your business people do, number one. Number two is, when you're thinking of learning, it doesn't matter whether you're a startup with 200 people or you're a monolith with 2,000 or 200,000 people, right? At the end of the day, it is about sustainability. It is about scalability, but more than anything else, it's about simplification and relatability. How do you bring that in consistently? The formula will differ because your people will differ, but how do you bring that to life?
Right. No, that's I'm sure that's some great piece of advice for the learning leaders. And thank you, Bhavna, for speaking with us today. And thank you for all your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.